From a young age, both boys and girls, but boys specifically in harsher ways, were cut off from their emotions. We were cut off from our emotions when we were shamed for crying, when we were ignored, when we were told to toughen up and to not act like a girl, told that boys don't cry, told to not be a wuss or a baby. Even by us seeing the men in our lives rarely ever cry, modeled how we are supposed to behave and deal with our emotions. Men, we weren't taught how to properly deal with our emotions. Properly dealing with our emotions would have been feeling, crying, venting, moving through the emotions and pain, and ultimately coming to an understanding or to some sort of closure or resolution. Men, we have been failed when it comes to being taught how to deal with our emotions. We have been told to suck it up, to be a man and to move on, that feelings are for girls or for the weak. But feelings are not weak, feelings are human, and being able to feel and move through them gives us insights and wisdom we don't get from pretending they aren't there or from distracting ourselves from them. When boys don't learn how to process pain, it doesn't disappear. It just shows up later with anger, numbness, addiction, or even violence. Being able to fully feel helps us connect to our inner world, our intuition. It helps us connect to our passions, helps us heal, and helps us find true confidence, acceptance, and love for ourselves. Being connected to our inner worlds is the only way we will truly know ourselves. Instead, we learn to disconnect from ourselves, to be someone else, to get the love and acceptance of our families, of our peers, and of society at large. We deserve to be loved unconditionally, without expectations of behavior or personality or toughness. Men, we have been taught not only through our families, but from the world at large, that vulnerability and feelings are feminine. The patriarchy has made femininity a weakness and something for us men to distance ourselves from. And that wasn't by accident. By teaching men to fear femininity, patriarchy keeps us competing with each other, disconnected from ourselves, and less likely to challenge the system. A man cut off from his emotions is easier to control. From an early age, boys were picked on if they didn't model the accepted form of masculinity. Being gay was a bad thing. And if people thought you were actually homosexual, you were outcasted, made fun of, and avoided. The idea that now coming out and being homosexual or trans or non-binary is a trend to get attention or to be cool is so ridiculous. Think about how your family would treat you if you came out as homosexual, trans, or non-binary today. A large majority of families and even friends would still be judgmental, would avoid you, would treat you differently, would not want to get too close or too affectionate, or they might tell you how they disagree or believe that you're living a life full of sin or blah, blah, blah. It has never been the cool thing to be anything other than straight. That is why so many gay or bisexual men and women stay on the DL. They would rather not deal with the judgment and hate they would receive from coming out than being authentically who they are. That's why I believe gay, trans, and non-binary people are some of the bravest, most courageous humans alive. They understand that they will be shamed, be judged, be looked at differently, and they still choose to authentically be themselves. We should look to them as inspiration on how to choose authenticity and how to be ourselves over wearing the socially deemed accepted mask and going along to get along. If you're enjoying this video, please do like, subscribe, and comment. It really does mean so much. Men, we have been conditioned to fear and distance ourselves from our femininity in order to be respected, accepted, and treated as normal. This has helped create the underlying disdain for women we see in society today. We have been conditioned to dislike women for plenty of reasons, and one of those is for the freedom they have to express themselves, to beautify themselves, to be affectionate with one another. We can do those things as well, but we will be judged, ostracized, avoided, looked down upon. And most of us can't handle that. We are holding on so deeply to the want to be respected and not cast aside. This is understandable. Connection and community is a core need for us humans. And most of us would rather mold ourselves to fit in rather than risk being authentic and looked down upon. Capitalism has also played a huge role in men distancing themselves from their feminine traits by forcing our worth to be what we produce and what we earn instead of who we are, our innate qualities and passions that make us us. Capitalism didn't just encourage productivity, it rewired our sense of worth. Instead of asking, "Who am I?" or "Why am I here?" men were taught to ask, "What can I produce?" or "How much can I earn?" Capitalism has highlighted survival and traditional masculine qualities as the most important, making lots of money, providing for lots of people, being of high status, and having beautiful women around your arm. None of these things are innately wrong, though the relentless pursuit of them scrambles what matters and what is most important in life. That being community, meaningful work, meaningful relationships, and knowing and loving yourself. And when I say loving yourself, I don't mean loving what you have or loving your status or loving that you are respected, but actually loving the person you are without any of those things. Actually enjoying that person. Capitalism prioritizes survival, whether that is bare minimum survival or luxurious survival. Focusing on survival inevitably leaves us feeling insecure. Insecure that what we have isn't enough. Insecure that who we are isn't enough. That what we are doing with our lives isn't enough. That leads us to focusing on the outside world to gain happiness, security, and respect, instead of searching for those things intrinsically, which is the only way to retain the feelings of happiness, security, and respect. In short, we learn to measure our worth by what we own, not who we are. By refocusing our attention inward, by going to therapy, by allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, by understanding ourselves and our passions, by accepting ourselves, the parts of ourselves that enjoy traditionally masculine things and the parts of ourselves that enjoy traditionally feminine things, and integrating all of that into our lives, loving all that makes us us, is the only way to happiness, to confidence, to respecting ourselves, and the only way to find the people who are meant to be around us, who we are meant to connect deeply with. This lie that has been perpetuated by insecure men, that women only want a stoic man who provides and protects, is not only harmful to our growth, but is a very clear psyop to keep us men stunted in our self-awareness and focused on survival instead of our evolution as a being. It also creates a negative feedback loop. Men are told by other men that women only want providers, that they want strong men who don't express their emotions, which then makes men suppress themselves and focus only on providing. Then they resent women for their inability to open up and for the pressure put on them to provide, even though it was a manufactured expectation from the start. And then some men get mad that women don't need them or that women are expecting more from them in relationships nowadays. They are just expecting equality, expecting a man to equally provide in the home and in the relationship. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that women really want this or really want that. But what I will say is that if you are authentically you, confidently you, that is magnetic. And you will attract the people around you who enjoy the hobbies you enjoy, who have similar passions, or even just admiration for the passions you have, even if those hobbies are comic books and Pokemon. Being confidently you, while actively trying to understand and get to know the people around you, treating them with care and respect, will result in connection, and true connection at that. Now, that doesn't mean you will be free from heartbreak and pain. Those things inevitably will come. But being in touch with your emotions and knowing who you are will allow you to move through those feelings and come to a deeper understanding of life, deeper levels of empathy, and will make you an even stronger, wiser person. If we understood how to move through our emotions, pain wouldn't harden us anymore. It would be lessons that gave us valuable insights, that strengthened our ability to empathize with others, and that gave us the capacity to love deeper, knowing we will make it through whatever emotions come from it. Get in touch with who you are by going to therapy, by allowing yourself to feel, and I promise you that will result in you being a more confident person who can handle deep pain, and that is attractive. Women will come into your life. Focus inward first, not outward, and you will have more meaningful, true connections that aren't built on transactions, i.e. that to be a true man, you need to be the provider, or power dynamics, i.e. that if you are not the leader or head of your household, that you are a weak man. From a young age, boys and girls were taught how they should dress, what are acceptable ways of appearance. We have been conditioned and programmed to play with certain toys, to wear certain clothes, to behave in certain ways. This conditioning and programming runs deep. It is everywhere. From the judgments and expectations of your parents, your teachers, and your peers. From the behaviors of those you see on TV, in movies, and on billboards. We learn to behave and like certain things based on what is perceived as normal and what will get us accepted. But in centuries past, what was perceived as normal for men and women were different. What was acceptable behaviors or toys or ways to dress was very stark compared to the rigidity we see mainstream today. Men wearing tons of jewelry, wearing wigs, makeup, stockings, high heels, beautifying their bodies and grooming themselves in a way that isn't accepted as manly today. These were men of all kinds, commoners, warriors, heads of people. Men beautifying themselves was normal. It was a form of expression. And for women, the standard of hairlessness wasn't around. We don't need to accept this narrative that manly men dress a certain way, that they look a certain way. No way that you dress, no job, no amount of money or muscles can make you a real man. Nothing that you do can take away the fact that you are a man. You can be gentle or generous or kind or aggressive or angry or humble or childish, but you are still just a man. Getting the validation of other men doesn't make you a man, and getting the validation of women doesn't make you a man either. So much of what we wear, what we watch, how we behave is performing masculinity so that we are accepted by society, so that our friends don't make fun of us, so that the person down the street doesn't look at you weird, so that women want us. A lot of our personality is a farce. It has been manufactured by the world, by this capitalistic, Christian, patriarchal world. It gives us the illusion of freedom while we are trapped in the box of expectation, ostracization, and judgment. Think about how many times you've stopped yourself from wearing something you liked or laughed off an interest you had just because you worried someone would question your manhood. That's performance, not authenticity. To break free, we have to find ourselves by being who you want to be, by dressing in a way that makes you feel good, that gets you excited to wear what you are wearing. You have permission to beautify your body, to dress unconventionally, to live life not worried about what the next person thinks. And I'm not telling you to go out and buy a dress, although do that if you want. I'm saying don't allow gender constructs and societal expectations to dampen your expression, your style, and ultimately you. I know this is hard because we have been conditioned to care so much about the opinion, validation, and acceptance of others. So start small. In little ways, express yourself more and more. And you will see that you can handle the judgment and the weird looks, and the right people will ultimately be attracted and find you. The people who share your interests and want to break free from societal standards and expectations as well. The truth is, we all have traditional masculine and feminine traits. That's what makes us human. A man might enjoy painting his nails, or piercing his body, or drinking fruity drinks, or reading romance novels, while also enjoying watching sports, or talking about the economy, or making things with his hands, because no human is one-dimensional. And a woman might enjoy rock climbing, or being an entrepreneur, or fixing her car when it breaks down, while also enjoying wearing skirts, or getting dolled up, or reading up on pop culture, because she too is a human being who isn't one-dimensional. When men reject their so-called feminine side, they are really rejecting half of their humanity. And when women reject their masculine side, they are pressured into shrinking themselves as well. Patriarchy robs all of us of wholeness. Embracing our likes, our passions, what we enjoy, regardless of the label that it is masculine or feminine, is how we will learn to accept and love ourselves. It is how we will gain true confidence. It is how we will move past patriarchy and get to a place of true gender equality in the world and in the home. Women are well on their way in this regard, partly because there is less judgment from the world on what constitutes a real woman versus the pressure society, specifically the men who run it, put on other men to be traditionally masculine, to be a true man. Men, we need to move past these gender constructs. We need to embrace all of ourselves. It's how we will find happiness. It's how we will find the meaningful and deep relationships we crave. And it's how we will feel confident. A big issue for humankind as a whole, but specifically I see so much with men, is understanding how to truly take accountability. Lots of men like to talk about accountability for others, but then don't take accountability for their actions, for their behavior, for their toxic beliefs. And I understand. It has been an epidemic for hundreds, probably thousands of years. I'm sure we didn't see our parents, our fathers truly taking accountability. We haven't seen it in our lives. We haven't been taught it. Taking accountability is focusing and acknowledging what you did to hurt someone else. You do that by hearing the other person out, by putting yourself in their shoes, by trying to understand their perspective. You then validate the other person, even if your intentions weren't to hurt them. You apologize without explaining why. You reassure them. You recognize and verbalize how you can do better. Then and only then do you explain your intention and maybe your feelings surrounding the situation. This is one of the most difficult things to do. I struggle with it all the time. I understand wanting to defend yourself, seeing the hurt you caused and feeling shame and guilt, feeling like a bad human being, like a bad man. You aren't a bad person. You just hurt someone you cared about, and they are allowed to be angry about that, allowed to voice their frustrations. Defending yourself or invalidating their feelings will only make things worse and will only continue to hurt the other person. You can explain that you didn't mean to hurt them, but first and foremost, you have to acknowledge their anger, acknowledge their pain, and recognize and verbalize how you can improve before you explain your intentions. Again, I get how hard this is, and I know you will mess up. I mess up and struggle with being quick to accountability all the time, but it is a skill. You will get better at it if you put in the effort. You will grow as a partner, but most importantly, you will grow as a human being. We need more people who can hold themselves accountable, who can handle anger and frustration and use it to get better, not worse. At the end of the day, all of this comes down to one thing: reclaiming our humanity. We've been cut off from our emotions, forced into rigid gender boxes, taught to fear vulnerability, and distracted by capitalism's endless chase for status and survival. But none of that makes us whole. None of that makes us strong. What makes us strong is knowing who we are, by being able to feel deeply, to connect authentically, to take accountability, and to love ourselves beyond what we produce, beyond what we own, beyond how manly we appear to others. Men, we don't need to keep performing for a system that has failed us. We don't need to keep proving ourselves to people who only value the mask we wear. The real freedom is in dropping that mask. The real confidence is embracing all of who we are, our masculine traits, our feminine traits, our quirks, our passions, our softness, and our strength. If we can do that, if we can start the work of unlearning, of healing, of holding ourselves accountable, then we won't just become better men, we'll become better humans. And that's what the world needs more than anything else right now. Thank you so much for watching. If this resonated, please do like, subscribe, and comment. And I hope we can make this world truly a better place.